Hello and welcome to Prince Civil Services YouTube channel, a unique initiative of Prince EDUHUB Sikar, Rajasthan. Here you can start preparation for civil services right from the first year of graduation. So please subscribe to this channel, that is Prince Civil Services. You can also follow us on various other social media platforms like Telegram, Twitter, Instagram with the same name, Prince Civil Services. So before I start today's topic and the video, there is a one announcement. It gives us immense pleasure to present you the new issue, that is the December issue of Prince Today, the current affairs magazine of Prince Civil Services. So this is a monthly magazine where you can get all the current affairs of the previous month. So this is December issue. This is a monthly magazine. So if you want to get this magazine, please do give us a visit at Prince College, located at the Bikaner Jaipur Highway, Sikar. And you can also contact us on the description given in the description box. So please buy this magazine and get all the information related with the current affairs. So let's start today's topic, and we are going to discuss in this video the history through MCQs, and the topic will be the Vedic Age, and this is the part 2. I hope you have watched the part 1. If you haven't watched the part 1, please do watch the previous video. So let's start with the question number 1. But before I start with the questions, let me just give you a quick review what needs to be read from this chapter. So whenever you are reading this chapter, that is the Vedic Age, please keep this thing in mind that you have to be in a comparative mode. That is, whenever you are reading this chapter, that is early Vedic period, please compare with the late Vedic period, or whenever you are reading late Vedic period, please compare with the early Vedic period. So these are the aspects which you need to read or learn about, that is the geography of early Vedic period, late Vedic period, polity, economy, society of the early Vedic period versus the late Vedic period. This way it will be easy to remember what was there in the early Vedic and what is there in the late Vedic. Addition to this, you need to learn some factual information, and that is related with the Vedic corpus, that is the Vedic literature. You have got Vedas, you have got Brahmanas, Aryankas, Upanishad. So please, you need some factual information. So always keep in mind these points whenever you are reading this chapter. So let's start with the questions. So the question number 1, the religion of early Vedic Aryans was primarily bhakti, image worship and yagna, worship of nature and yagna, worship of nature and bhakti. So this is your question. You can pause the video, solve the question and come back and look for the explanation and the answers. So this question deals with the religion of early Vedic Aryans. So please remember that in the early Vedic period, people used to worship the nature and they used to pray, and the mode was the performance of yagnas. But it was not the bhakti, it was not image worship, because idol worship was not there. So it was simply they were worshipping the forces of nature in the form of humans, or it was form of the gods. So when they were not able to explain any natural phenomena, whether it was lightning or whether it was rain, so they were what they did was that if they were not able to explain any natural phenomena, they simply treated as that it was related to some god and they gave it a name of the god. So you have rain god, that is Indra. You have the fire god, that is Agni, and so on. What was the mode of worship? How they worshipped? So that was prayers and the performance of yagna. There was no idol worship, there was no bhakti, and so on. So this was in early Vedic period. But let me give you some further additional information. So in early Vedic period, it was mainly prayers. But in later Vedic period, it turned into primary mode was sacrifices. Please remember this. Mainly it was prayers in EVP, and in later Vedic period it was sacrifices. So this is the question number 1. A bit more information. Why they worshipped? So there must be a reason. So the reason was only materialistic gains. Only materialistic gains. That is, they want cattle, they want sons, so they wanted wealth. There was no spiritual angle. They do not want to get moksha or anything similar to that. So simply it was materialistic. So this was a short information regarding the religion. Now let's move on to question number 2. Consider the following statements about Rigvedic period. There was widespread use of horses. Agriculture was the predominant economic activity. So this is again a question regarding the Rigvedic period or the early Vedic period. So the statement number 1 is right or wrong? It is right statement, because we all know that there was widespread of use of horses. Horse was the major reason for the success of the Aryans. So please always remember, the main animal was horse during the EVP, and the major reason for the success of Aryans was the horses. Now let's look at the statement number 2. Agriculture was the predominant economic activity. This statement is wrong. Why it is wrong? Because if it was the question regarding the later Vedic period, then it would have been the right statement, because in early Vedic period, the primary activity was cattle rearing. It was cattle rearing. They were semi-nomadic people. Pastoralism was the main mode of economic activity. But when you move to later Vedic period, then it was the primary activity. Agriculture was the primary activity during the later Vedic period. So the right answer to this question is the statement number 1 is only right. So it's misprint here. So it should be here only 1 only. So yes, I hope you got an idea. Rigvedic period, you only had the horses, widespread use of horses, and agriculture was not that predominant. Cattle rearing was the predominant activity. So it's misprint here. It should be 1 only. Okay, the question number 3. With reference to Rigvedic period, consider the following pairs. So there are the titles of the officials and the functions performed by those officials. So you had Vrajpati, function officer who enjoyed authority over a large land or a pasture ground. Kulapas, head of the families. Gramanis, officer concerned with collection of taxes. So match the following. Which is correctly matched? The question is asking which is correctly matched. Among the titles, both, that is the 1 and 2, are correctly matched. The third is not correctly matched. So we had an official in the Rigvedic period known as Vrajpati, who was responsible for a large land or pasture ground. So that is correctly matched. Then second, Kulapas. So in those days, the family as a unit, the basic unit was Kul or the family, and the head of the family was known as Kulapa. Kulap or Kulapa. But this point number 3 is wrong, because collection of texts. Firstly, it was not present in your early Vedic, it came in the later Vedic, and the officer who was concerned with collection of texts was Sangrahitri. Sangrahitri. Then what was the role of Gramani? So from the name itself you can judge that there was a unit, gram, and the person who headed the gram was Gramani. So we can see here that the right answer is 1 and 2 are correctly matched. So B is the right answer. Now move on to the question number 4. In ancient Rigvedic period, a term Gavishti, a very common but important question. In ancient Rigvedic period, a term Gavishti is used frequently. It refers to war in Rigvedic period, officer who enjoyed authority over the pasture ground, head of the families, religious functionaries. So this is a very easy question but an important one. So the right answer is war in the Rigvedic period. So friends, let me explain you this question and answer. So in Rigvedic period, the major source of wealth was the cattle in the form of cows. So if a person has got many cattle, he was declared as a wealthy person. So it was a source of wealth, and as a source of wealth, it was also the bone of contention, point of conflict. So there were wars which were generally happened for getting more and more cows, more and more cattle. So the wars were happening for the cows and the cattle. So general term which was given for the wars turned out to be Gavishti. So please remember, what is Gavishti? It is the war in the Rigvedic period. So in the Rigvedic period, there were wars, but the wars were for mainly cattle, cows, and the term which was used for in general for wars was Gavishti. So I hope you will never forget this term Gavishti. It is a term used for war in the Rigvedic period. And the last question to this part 2, which of the following were the prominent gods during the later Vedic period? So we have seen some features of the religion. Now the question is asking about the gods of the later Vedic period. Please remember this. So in early Vedic period and later Vedic period, the gods were different. So this is question about the LVP, that is later Vedic period. So Rudra, Agni, Indra, Vishnu. The question is asking the prominent gods in the later Vedic period. So Agni and Indra, they were prominent gods in early Vedic period. We have discussed the mode of worship, the reason of worship. Now the gods were different also. In early Vedic period, the prominent gods were Indra and Agni, but in later Vedic period, the gods which turned out to be prominent were Rudra and Vishnu. So 1 and 4 should be the answer, and the right option is C, 1 and 4. So please remember, if you have to read the religion of, if you have to describe the religion of the Vedic period, please do it in a comparative fashion. Early Vedic period, later Vedic period. You should know what gods were there, what was the reason why they worshipped, plus the mode of worship, were there prayers, were there sacrifices. So early Vedic period, later Vedic period. So these were some of the questions in the part 2. This video will be followed by the part 3, and that will be the last part regarding the questions from the Vedic period. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel and see you in the next video. Thank you.